Welcome to the wonderful world of marketing. I'm Grad Kahn, your host. Today, we're going to talk about task-centric interfaces, this shift from an application-centric universe to a task-centric universe, applications to tasks. I think it's a not crazy insight to note that users don't actually want to open applications. I mean, I love Word. Word's a great application, but when I open Word, I don't open Word because I want to open Word. I open Word because I want to update my resume, because I want to write a letter to a friend. I open Word because I'm writing a recommendation to draft a new technology. I'm using the product, the application, to complete a task. What we've done in computing over the last several decades, because it's a very new industry, is we've put the application in front of the task. Users find this frustrating. Increasingly, users are looking for a task-centric way to complete things, with the application that's appropriate helping them. I think this particular shift to a task-centric universe is probably the most important thing happening in the industry today. And I also believe it's one of the things that democratizes what we're doing in computing and makes it something that everyone can use. For example, I want to complete my expense report. I don't care what application launches underneath to help me complete it. I just want to complete my expense report. The other thing that's happening is what I'll call line of business application overload. And we're now in almost the third decade of really broad line of business applications. So people really started to roll them out in the 1980s as desktop applications. That continued in the 90s, and by the late 90s, they started rolling out LOB web applications. And there was a moment in time where everyone thought everything would be on the web. And that continued until about 2007, 2008. And then in around that time, modern applications, so think about the applications that have been influenced by the iPhone and touch-based interfaces, they started to come out more broadly in the LOB environment. It's like the evolution of any industry. So if you think about how, say, entertainment's evolved, at one point in time, all entertainment was theater. And then, theater evolved into opera, but theater still existed. And then, mass media came out. Then they invented movies. But movies didn't eliminate theater. Now there are movies. And then radio came out. Movies then added sound, right? So now there are movies and sound and there's radio, and then mass production of magazines started happening, and hey, there's still theater, and then there's still magazines, and there's still radio, and then TV came out. The end of movies. No, there's still tons of movies, and now there's TV, and now there's radio still, and still going hard, and there's magazines. Things just keep adding, and this is what's happened in the LOB universe, which is those desktop applications, they're still there. Those web applications, they're still there. Now there's a whole pile of modern applications, and what we're hearing from users is that it's actually so hard to figure out what to use to complete their job, right? They want a task-centric approach. But instead, they're forced into an application-centric approach. They're not sure which application to use, or it keeps changing, or it doesn't work anymore. And then they get super frustrated. And so you get to a situation where, by the end of the day, your average office worker is exhausted and burned out and frustrated. Can we fix that? Can we come up with a better way of doing it? And for me, the way to fix it would be to come up with an interface that would effectively mask whether it's an application or a web application or a modern application, and really focus on the task. And whatever type of application needs to launch underneath it will. Doesn't matter. And that can change. And that's okay too, because I remain focused on the task that I want to complete, and I get used to completing the task that way. That for me is the story of the LOB Application Overload. The other thing that's happening, and this is happening particularly for business leaders, is we've run into something called the elephant analysis problem, where there are so many silos of data, and there's so many types of data, and data's flowing in so many different directions that the different leaders in an organization are looking at it and they're touching it, and to each of them it looks like something different. The classic sort of analogy of the elephant, where if I'm holding the tusk, it's a spear. If I'm holding the trunk, it's a snake. The tail feels like a rope, and they're all actually, touching the same thing. And so how do you get a complete picture of your business? How do you solve the elephant analysis problem? There has been, I think, for quite a long time, a belief that there's a silver bullet, that it will be this one day, magically, all apps are going to be in one place and we'll have one single view of the whole business. And maybe that will happen. It will be a wonderful day when it happens. But I believe a lot of senior IT folks are starting to say, hey, you don't know when that's going to happen. So what a lot of folks are saying is there's some way to get at least all the silos to be in the same place. And can we do the integration on the glass? I once saw this at a hospital where they had two EHRs. They couldn't get all the data in one EHR to be in the other, and vice versa. And they were both necessary to treat patients, and they couldn't come up with a single definitive view. And the solution they came up with was to put both EHRs up on the same monitor, and they effectively allowed the physician or the nurse or PA to basically look at both of them and then be able to say, okay, I think I understand the complete picture. And humans are very good at visual identification, and we're pretty good, we've got brains. And so effectively the integration on the glass allowed the human to do the final step integration. So a lot of people are saying, hey, could we at least just get everything on the same place and then let the humans do the integration from there? And so what I'm going to show you has some of that in it as well. I'm going to talk now about Windows App Portals. Windows App Portals are a very cool feature of Windows 10. They work both on the Windows 10 start screen and in Windows 10 tablet mode. So it's effectively, think of it as a start screen under the start screen, and then that app portal can integrate desktop applications, web applications, and modern applications. For me, this is a really elegant way of being able to show people a task-based interface, integrate across all the LOB apps, and be able to deliver an experience where you may not have everything perfectly integrated, but you can integrate it on the glass all through Windows 10. So I think it's a really exciting time to be in IT because we're seeing the technology abstracted enough that we're moving beyond just getting it to work and moving to how to work with it. And that, for me, is the real shift that's happening that's super exciting. So in the next edition of Wonderful World of Marketing, I'm going to actually demo my marketing app portal and show you how it works and really demonstrate the concepts we've been talking about, from the eureka moment all the way to task-based interfaces and the elephant analysis problem, and show you how all that comes to life in a real live application that I use every single day to do my job.